Introducing the new Roland VP-03 Vocoder.
Hi, this is Leonard from Kosmic Sound and welcome to another video. We're going to be covering one of the new products from Roland's boutique line for 2016, and it is this machine here, the Roland VP-03 Vocoder. Just before we get into talking about this unit in particular, let's briefly cover the technology that goes into these Roland products. They use a proprietary technology in here called analog circuit behavior, or ACB for short. The major difference between this and how a lot of other virtual analogs work is that they model the waveform from an original machine that they're trying to replicate, where Roland model the components that went into the original machine itself. So it enables them to get a result a lot closer to the piece of hardware they're recreating. This one here actually recreates the VP-03 Vocoder, which is one of the all-time classic vocoders. It's been used in a lot of music. Also, if you're a child of the 80s, you may remember this from Transformers. They used it for the sound of Soundwave. So now let's have a look at what we get with this new machine. So you can see you get the panel itself, so that's the VP-03 itself. You can use it with the K25 keyboard module, or you can attach your own MIDI keyboard to it if you want to do it that way, or of course you can use it through USB inside your DAW. You also get this gooseneck microphone with it. Normally you'd plug it straight into the port on here, but I'm just having it up here because we're doing a video and it needs to be a bit higher. This machine breaks down into three sections. You've got strings, you've got human voice, which is a simulation, and then you've got the vocoder itself. So the first part I'm going to show you is the string section, and I actually really love it. I think it gives you that classic sort of string machine feel. It's that really awesome kind of vintage string sound, which we don't really have in a lot of pieces of new hardware these days. So it's a little bit difficult to get that sound other than if you own either a classic machine or if you have a plugin that does that. But in my experience, there aren't really that many plugins that do it very well. You do have some controls that we can change the string sound with, but not a lot. So we have a universal release control. So that's your instant cutoff. Up the top here, it's sort of as a very nice drift. We've got a tack control if you wanted to and then finally what we have is a tone control. So that adds more brightness as we move through. The only other control we have here for the strings is just to turn it on and off. While we're over this side, let's just have a brief look at this knob. This is just a basic tune knob, so let's just get back here. So dead simple, just a tuning knob. Let's move over now to the human voice section. So I'm going to turn down the strings. This is the mixer over here, incidentally, so human voice strings and the direct microphone signal, we can bleed into this as well if you want to mix that in with the vocoder. So I'm going to drop up this human voice section here. You can either turn the strings off or not, the level's down, so that's fine. So let's have a listen to this human voice section. So really nice, there's two different octaves we can have there, the 4-foot and the 8-foot, so they label them male and female. So if we drop that one in, what we get is 2, so we'll get the 2 octaves at the same time. If I turn off the female, then we just get the lower octave. The other thing we have on here is an ensemble switch as well, so that gives it a little bit of chorus. Makes it a bit wider, and that's really all there is to the human voice section. So at this point it's probably a good idea to go onto this vibrato section here. This can't be used on the strings, but we can use it on both the human voice and also the vocoder. And this again always just gives you a really nice kind of vintage flavor as well. So you set the rate, there's a delay time as well if you want to do that, and then it's really just bringing in the depth. And that's really all there is to the two sections now. So the only other one on here is the vocoder. So let's jump into that a bit now. And I should mention as well, of course, you can just blend these in whatever combination you wanted. So you could have the human voice and the strings at the same time in whatever ratios that you want. So the third section we have is the vocoder. This has its own volume control over here. So you drop that up there, we can see the signal coming in. Just to briefly explain what a vocoder does, it takes a carrier wave, which is usually the form of a synthesizer, so that would be, for example, just whatever we happen to be playing, and then it modulates that carrier wave with the sound of the voice. It analyzes the shapes or formants of the mouth and then applies them to that carrier wave to effectively kind of create a speaking synthesizer. So when you use a vocoder, it's important that you basically have to have keys held down, otherwise, as you can hear, nothing happens. But as soon as I hold keys down, you'll notice we now have the vocoder playing. And there are only a couple of other things I can do on here to control that. I've got ensemble, the same as I had on the human voice. This is an on-off control here. And then the final thing is I have a
tone control, which can introduce brightness. The other thing we can do here is inject a bit of the direct mic signal. So once that happens, you get a bit more of the voice tone, not just the vocoder by itself.
So the next thing I'm going to show you is what we've got over on this side. I'll briefly mention as well, you've got the plug-in power switch here. That's actually for the gooseneck microphone that's included. If you want to use your own dynamic microphone, then you don't have to turn that on. Below that, we've got this really interesting pitch control section. So let me just get back, say, the human voice. And what we have over the side here, so normally you'd expect to find your mod wheel or mod strip and your pitch bend. So we can have normal pitch bend, and then it works exactly like pitch bend normally would. If we move it over to pitch shift, what we get instead is simply a drop in pitch, and we can set that wherever you want. And then once we have that happening, there is one particular control over the pitch of this specifically. So if we hold a note, I'm going to take that right down, and then I can actually set where that pitch descends to with the pitch set knob. Interestingly as well, you'll see these little white marks around here, and they set those there because that's supposed to be the perfect, well, the closest approximation to the pitch profile of the human voice. That aside, if we now want to go into automatic mode, we will flick the switch over to that. And then what this does, it's kind of like a pitch enveloping tool. So where it is right now, you're not going to hear a lot happening. So as I said, that's pretty much the closest to a flat position. But what we can now do is we can change the time. And you'll start hearing that we get this bend in pitch. And then we can set the actual pitch itself. So that's right at the top where you won't really get any change. And as we move down further, you'll get a bigger rise in pitch, and you can set the time to make it even longer if you want to do it that way. So the final section we've got to talk about is this row of buttons here, which you can see numbered 1 to 16. We've got a play stop button and we've got a memory button. So of course that suggests a sequencer. What it doesn't suggest is there's also a chord memory built into it, which is actually a really cool feature. So when you have this memory button illuminated, you can select any of these buttons and each of them stores a chord, and then what will happen is when you play any note, it'll play that chord. And so we can move through. So these are all kind of in there already, but you can write your own over the top as well. So the way you actually go about that, you'd pick your chord. So that's what it is at the moment. I'm going to hold that down, press play stop, the light will start blinking. I'll put that in there, and then when I hit this again, that chord is now stored. So of course the other thing we can do here is use this as a sequencer. So to do that, we're going to jump out of chord memory mode. What we'll instantly see here is we now have 16 steps. We can play back what's already in there. And using this is absolutely dead easy. All you need to do is hold down your number, press a key. Next one. And then what I can do is actually turn the ones off that I don't want to use. And there we go. So that's pretty much the sequencer. It's actually really easy, but you can also store a chord in there. So we could also do on this first one, let's say I want a chord. And it's as easy as that. So once we've got notes in there, there's a couple of other things we can do as well. Here's my sequence. I can change the gate time on it. So I would hold down this, hold down the play stop, move down on C2, as it's called, that strip there. The other thing I love about this sequencer, probably one of my favorite features on this actually, is you can also sample your voice into any of these steps. Again, it's easy to do it. You just hold down the number you want to sample to. Then I'm going to hold down the play stop button. I'm going to speak into the microphone, test, and then when I play this back, I'm just going to turn the other steps off so it's easier to hear. You actually have the sample in there. You can also change the tempo of this sequence as well if I turn these back on. Sorry, this isn't going to really sound very good, but that's okay. So get rid of the vocoder there, and I'm just going to hold this down. And this is your tempo control, holding down play stop and using C1 to control it. Briefly, let's just take a quick look at what's on the back of this machine. You've got your MIDI in out here, 5-pin if you don't want to use USB. Further over, we've got our main out here. We've got a headphone out, that's your level control. USB, which actually transfers MIDI as well as how you power the unit. It doesn't have a power adapter, you can power it through USB, or if you want to plug it into a wall, you can get a wall powered USB adapter. And then finally, just your simple on-off switch on the far right. You can actually raise this up, so it doesn't come with this as standard, so you can always buy that as an optional extra. It also fits into the DK01 stand that is now coming with the TB03 and the TR09. So you can lift this up through here, click it in, it has 2 different levels. The final thing I'm going to show you is the built-in sound card. So there's a 2496 audio interface built into this. The other features are on there. It's battery powered if you want to power it that way other than through USB. It also has a built-in speaker, so if you haven't got anything connected to it, then it can still play back through itself. And of course, if you don't have the keyboard present, you can use the C1 controller just to play back a chord. Let's have a look in the software now about how this is working. So quite simple, I've got an external instrument set up in Logic. My MIDI destination is going to the VP-03, but we're not using that in this demo anyway. My audio is coming back in through input 1 and 2. You can see if I play, we've got signal coming back in. Set these to record. So when that's finished, we're actually recording MIDI as well as audio if that's relevant. It just enables you to play it back later if you want to work it that way. We've been looking at the Roland VP-03 Vocoder and string machine, new from Roland in their boutique series. If you'd like more information, you come in and see us in store, like us on Facebook, or check us out at kosmic.com.au.
Thanks for watching.
No matter what you play or want to learn, Australia's leading musical instrument retailer Kosmic Sound offers a range of guitar, bass, DJ, high-tech, drum and PA equipment to suit your needs. Check us out online at kosmic.com.au.